spirit cannot be read. God is a spirit, cannot be intellectualized. So if God is a spirit, then for a man to attain the knowledge of God, that man must come to a point of revelation. A revelation is only given through the spirit, and God is the custodian of all revelations. So you cannot know God beyond the level he deems you fit for him to know. So any level that God permits of himself that you should know is the level that is delivered unto you. So Moses comes to a point on the backside of the desert where he was walking, going in cycles on the backside of the desert. But through the backside of the desert, God said, I am bringing you to the mountain of the Lord. How can the backside of the desert lead a man to the mountain of God? I came to submit to you that there is a way through poverty that can bring a man into prosperity. There is a way through pain that can bring a man into abundance. There is a way through shame that can bring a man to glory. You see, if you are not careful, you will use the condition of a man to draw a conclusion. But sometimes what I go through in life is just a process and cannot be used to determine where I am going to. Process. So he went through the backside of the desert, but came to the mountain of God. As I speak, somebody is walking through the backside. But the backside of the desert is just part of the journey. You are actually coming to the mountain of God. And when God is giving a man revelation, it is only revelation that allows God to deposit part of himself into a man. Because no man can exhaustively know God in the fullness of his capacity. God is so big that when he gives the fullness of his knowledge to a man, that man will have a nervous breakdown. You cannot contain God. So God will now bring you to a realm with him and give you a revelation of a certain dimension of him. So if you know God in one dimension and you don't know God in another dimension, you can pass in a dimension and fail in another. That is why when a man receives revelation of God as a healer, then he says, I will call him Jehovah Rapha, for he is the God who heals my diseases. When another man encounters him on the mountain, he said, on the mountain of the Lord it shall be seen, I will call him Jehovah Jireh, for he is a provider. There is a possibility for you to know him as a healer and not know him as a provider, because a dimension has been delivered unto you, but another has not been delivered. So the God I know is different from the God you know. So don't force your knowledge of God on me. Because when God is giving a man revelation, God condescends to the level of that man, so that in the finite mind and comprehension of a mortal, he will be able to receive certain things from the immortal realm. It will nyamede adia eni pentimi nswa eno nyame ankasa abrana se eno de ma se achede enam adom ne ahumobro so. It is what Jacob. That's what done in where they are Jacob. Or done in where they are Najono at Jacob. At the side of Bophobia or any Baby Diakon. Bible said, and God came to him in the night as an angel that came to wrestle, because Jacob was a man who wrestled with his brother from the womb. And the only way God could come down for the man to understand him is to come as a wrestler. So God is coming to your level for you to understand. When they came to Jericho, in the book of Joshua, he stood by Jericho as a man that was dressed as a soldier. And because Joshua was a soldier, he stood and he questioned the man and he said, are you for us or against us? And the Lord said, I have come as a captain of the armies of the Lord. Joshua could understand that revelation because he was speaking to a soldier, and God came as a soldier. In Genesis chapter 18, when Abraham, who is a pilgrim and a traveler, The Lord said to him, leave your father's house and go to a place that I will tell you. So this guy was a traveler. Bible said he sat at the tent door in the heat of the day, lifted his eyes and saw 3 men coming, and the one in the middle was God. And the Bible said these 3 men appeared as travelers. So the Bible said, and Abraham ran towards them and said, my Lord, if I have found favor before you, do not pass me by. Let me give you some water to wash your feet. Because Abraham himself was a traveler, God came to him as a traveler. And God said, this time I am coming to a man who is a shepherd, always going around looking for a bush to feed his sheep. I want to make myself manifest to this guy, but I want to come through the bush. And this bush is something without a glory. This bush is something that is not esteemed. This bush is not precious in the sight of men. But for once, God decided to make himself manifest, not through any precious thing, but through a bush. And Moses walked on the wilderness and saw a manifestation of God that came through the bush in the path of life. And Moses said, I will go near. And the Bible said, out of that bush, the voice of the Lord began to speak. And Moses paid so much attention to the bush because though it was just a bush, the day God decided to manifest himself through the bush, it ceased to become a mere bush, because now God had entered the bush. I am talking to somebody who is just like a bush, but the Lord is saying, I want to bring a manifestation through you that will attract the attention of the world, because the day I decide to make myself manifest in you, you cease to be a bush. This is just a bush, but because God entered that bush, may God enter a certain dimension of your life. May God manifest himself in a certain area of your life and cause people to be attracted. So now the bush has become the voice of God, the mouthpiece of God. It is just a bush. And the moment God entered the bush, the next voice that came was that take off your sandal from your feet, because the place where you stand is a holy ground. It means the moment God entered the bush, it was no more a bush, but that same circumference, that same area became a holy ground because God entered. Therefore, the weight of a man is predicated on the God that enters him. It is not